So of course you want to do well. Every race, we professional race drivers, we always say that the most important race is the next race, right? In your life, the next one is always the most important. But for Monaco, it's definitely very special.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Propulsion. We got my friend Lucas de Grassi right next to me. How are you?
What's up, Seb?
Good to see you. I'm just going to do a little intro in French because usually we're in French and you're actually our first English guest. But salut tout le monde, juste une petite intro en français. Ça va être le premier épisode qu'on fait en anglais aujourd'hui. C'est un test. Je pense que beaucoup d'entre vous comprennent l'anglais. Et je voulais aussi pouvoir vous amener des histoires de personnes qui sont super intéressantes, qui ont une langue natale naturellement d'anglais, comme mon pote Lucas qui est juste à côté de moi. Donc cet épisode va être en anglais, dispo normalement avec des sous-titres sur YouTube. Donc si jamais tu comprends vraiment pas du tout l'anglais, on sera de retour avec des épisodes français dans le futur, mais celui-ci en particulier va être complètement en anglais. Donc voilà, petite intro de fait, c'est parti, à la prochaine, si jamais tu comprends pas l'anglais, sinon on continue avec des sous-titres sur YouTube. Right, there we go.
Je parle français très bien. Hein. Si vous voulez parler français, pour moi, c'est bien.
Je savais pas. I didn't know.
I don't.
That was actually pretty impressive, though, to be honest. I haven't heard you speak French that much. Now, I say I haven't heard you speak French because we have this rivalry going on, which brings us to where we are today.
Now. Yeah, exactly.
So just to give a little bit of context, we both really enjoy playing tennis. We met a few months ago, and since we've embarked on this journey of an epic year-long tennis tournament playing here in Monaco, and we're counting the sets, and throughout a year, correct me if I'm wrong, it's whoever loses at the end of the year takes the other for dinner, right?
Exactly, have to pay dinner for
everyone, the family,
exactly,
yeah.
Because then I have 2 kids, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, I need to. It's just me.
So with some sets, and we are currently very, very tied together. No, I think
it's 7-6. Yeah, 7-6 for me or for you? Do you know?
I think for me last time.
Okay, all right, there you go. 7-6. Yeah. That's that racing driver competitive side coming out, right? But what we're going to do, I'm really looking forward to this. It's just the two of us today. Cedric and Emric can't be with us today. But I'm really looking forward to this because we're going to get into, your career, your, where it all started and where it's brought you to today, which is really exciting actually this week with your team's home race for the Formula E in Monaco. But yeah, let's start with the race this weekend and then we'll work our way backwards towards where it all started.
So we are in Monaco. I've been living here now for 12 years. And since my Formula One times, since I was driving for Virgin Racing, but it's a very special weekend for us. Every time we race in Monaco, it's first it's a iconic, special place, amazing racetrack, and there is only a few opportunities in a lifetime to drive in this track, right? It's not a track like, let's say, Silverstone or Monza that I've raced like hundreds of times. You can go there a weekend and just practice or just get a GT car and drive it around. Here you can't. So I count on my fingers how many races I've done here. And this week will be my 8th race. Actually, my 8th race here in Monaco. I race in Formula 3, Formula 2, Formula 1, and then 3 times and so it'll be my 7th or 4 times in Formula E. So it'll be my 8th race. And yeah, it's special because I'm racing this year for a Monegasque team. Yeah. The only Monegasque, the only, I think, ever Monegasque team in the history of motorsport. We are based in Monaco. Everything we develop is there, so it's a special race for everybody.
It's a super special race for the team. I've actually been to the headquarters here.
I was this morning on the simulator.
Oh, there you go. Yes. There you go. So I tried the simulator. I did put the car in the sea. I'm not going to lie, straight in. But it's really exciting for me, who's kind of grown up around here as well, to have a Monegasque team racing on a Monegasque track. Is really special, and I think we're all really looking forward to seeing that. Does it add a little bit of extra pressure for you?
Yes, I think Monaco always adds some pressure, right? It's a special race. It's always I've done 2 podiums here in Formula E. I never won it. I finished second twice to Sebastian Buemi. back in season 1 and season 3 of Formula E. So I never managed to win it, but it's a special podium, it's a special event. So there is this pressure, and of course for the team is a very special weekend. And for me, I will have all my family, friends, everybody that I know. So of course you want to do well. Every race, we professional race drivers, we always say that the most important race is the next race, right? In your life, the next one is always the most important. But for Monaco, it's definitely very special.
Yeah, do you think this would be the one, you know, if you were like the highlight kind of race of the year for you, or?
Yeah, let's say that when I raced for Audi last year, the home race was Berlin, which we had like, I don't know, 250 guests and thousands of spectators, and I won the race, and it was pretty special. So if I had to choose one race to win this year, I have to choose Monaco.
Well, the good news is you'll win plenty more than just one, hopefully. So there we go.
Hopefully that's the first one we win. We've done a podium,
and then all the others after that. Yeah. Yes. Well, now you're in Formula E, and we'll speak about that a lot. But where did it all start for you? You know, I'm intrigued. We've spoken a lot about tennis. We've spoken about cars a lot, but I don't, you know, I haven't heard this straight from you on how this passion kind of came about.
When I was a kid in Brazil. To begin with, to start in motorsport, you have to come from a wealthy background. It's a sad fact, but either your family has to be involved in motorsport somehow, or you have to come from somehow a considered wealthy background, because you need the support to buy the go-kart, you need support to go to the racetrack, mechanics, tires, engines, and so on. So luckily I was born in a good family. My father supported my early career, but myself, I decided to become a professional racing driver in my mind, or to give it a go, to try to become a professional race driver, when Ayrton Senna died. So Ayrton Senna died in Imola, actually. We just had the F1 race there. In a very unusual circumstance. It was a bit of a mystery. He was at the height of his career, and it stopped Brazil. Brazil was like mourning his death for 3 days in a row, and I was 9 years back then. I was 9 years old, and the impression I got, the feeling that I got from everybody, I was like, wow, this guy races cars, but the impact that he has on the country
was more than that. Yeah,
was much more than that. So I said, look, I think I can use the sport, or I understood at that age that the sport was something more than just a sport. Was you could inspire people to do stuff. And I was like, okay, I was kind of starting doing like local championships and stuff. So okay, let's give it a go. I want to have at least a small percentage of this impact. Would be already some life achievement for me. And then my mom doesn't like racing that much, so my mom said, okay, you have to do well at school so you can race. So I was always like studying a lot, so I could miss the classes, I could be in front of my
your grades.
Yeah, my grades. So I had some time to drive go-karts, but essentially I drove go-karts from when I was 9-10 years old up to when I was 16 in Brazil. I did 3 races in Europe, 3 European Championship races and 1 World Championship, which I finished 5th with Hamilton, with Rosberg. When I look at the list, with Kubica, with
you're in that generation.
I was in the same generation, so when I look at the list, it was really amazing. Actually, with Susie Wolff as well. She was there. Clivio Piccioni, that runs the karting here, also was there. So a lot of Van der Gaard, Maldonado. So all these guys, they were racing go-kart back then it was called Formula E. And then when I did the jump to cars, back when I was 16, I raced in Brazil for 2 years. Then I entered university, so I started doing economics.
So you're still juggling at this point a lot of school and racing. And
back then, so when I was 17, I received, because I was doing quite well in cars, I received a kind of an offer to become like part of the Renault driver development program, which is like Renault F1 had a few young drivers that they would support financially to race. But then I had to stop everything I was doing and have to focus completely into racing. And then I stopped university. Okay, worst case scenario, I come to Europe. I had to move, so I had to move to the UK. I moved to Oxford.
Very different from Brazil. Oxford. Alone at this point?
Alone,
you moved completely
yeah,
alone?
It was very tough psychologically. Actually, I'm very, very glad I did this move because I was living with my parents, going to school, doing the usual stuff. And suddenly I had to drop the girlfriend, drop the school, drop my friends. First year university, everybody was having amazing time, partying and everything. I had to drop everything, move to Oxford to live in a studio by myself. The first time I washed clothes by myself, I put the
always a mission.
Yeah, like cooking by myself and all this stuff. Before, my mom used to do the stuff for me. I used to go to the restaurant, but I was alone in Oxford, so with no friends, nobody. And then I did this step. It's when I kind of realized, okay, I'm trying to become a professional. And then I did British Formula 3.
Okay, yeah.
That year was 2004. Then I did...
and is this still all also with the same generation?
Yes. So British Formula 3. And then with British Formula 3, you do the international races also, everybody together. So I did the Marlboro Masters in Zandvoort with Hamilton and Sutil and everybody. Then next year I moved to the European Formula 3 series in 2005. Then I raced with Vettel, with Nakajima, with Paul Di Resta was my teammate back then, and
so it's quite a small world. Like once you're kind of in at that level, it's you kind of all know each other.
Yeah, I would
right?
say that it's like tennis. I mean, the best drivers from different parts of the world, they come from the European Formula 3, which now is the Formula 3, and then you race together, and then you move up the stairs. So. Or move up the ladder. Mm-hmm. So I did Formula 3, British Formula 3, European Formula 3. I won the Macau Grand Prix, which is the World Championship, considered to be the World Cup of Formula 3.
Okay, yeah.
Because you have the Japanese, you have everybody goes there. Actually, was a very cool. Was that victory? Sometimes it's a small thing that changes your career. And you can be lucky or unlucky. And I was second. Kubica, Robert was leading the race, and there was a safety car by chance. Robert had a 2-second gap, so I would not have won that race. But there was a safety car, and there was when the safety car came in, there was 1 lap to go. So I had to make the move. So I managed to have a good restart, overtook Robert on the outside, managed to win that race, which put me in the spotlight.
For sure.
And then I moved to Formula 2 next year under the wings of Renault and then I got my first Formula 1 test because of this victory.
Which the pressure for that must be pretty incredible. You're in the car, the team's going to be looking at how you do on that first test, right?
Yeah, it was a bad test actually because I was not prepared and nobody told me in advance. I won that race, and the week after that race, I never drove anything faster than Formula 3, and Heikki Kovalainen was the test driver back then, and he got sick. And then they called me Thursday, said, "Oh, you're gonna test this Saturday." I was like, "But my neck, there was no simulator to practice, nothing." So I arrived there, I had 1.5 days. It was not my best test because I was not prepared. That's why the kids today, they're much more prepared than back then I was. So anyway, I did the test, then I went to Formula 2. Then I was vice champion in 2007. I lost to Timo Glock. I raced 2006 with Hamilton. Hamilton won the championship. Then 2007, I raced with many other guys, but I was fighting with Timo Glock and finished second. Then I signed my first Formula 1 deal to be the reserve driver. And
so all of this is kind of under the Renault umbrella.
Always, yeah. So Renault financed pretty much my career. It costs roughly 10 million euros today to take a kid from the age of 6 to start in go-kart, to do the go-kart, 1 year in Formula 4, 2 years in Formula 3, and 2 years in Formula 2. So
wow, that is 10 million to get.
10 million to get, and somebody has to pay.
Either it's family
either your
or
family
sponsors.
or sponsors, or in this case, in my case, 90% of this money or more, it was paid by Renault. So I did all the Formula 3, all the Formula 2, including the F1 testing. Back then, you could test a bit, so I did a few days. And then when I was kind of ready to move to Formula 1, there was the Singapore scandal.
Yes. Yeah. We spoke about this actually on our last episode because we had Romain.
Piquet crashed. Who you had?
We had Grosjean, Romain Grosjean on the last episode.
So it was me and Grosjean.
Yeah.
So Grosjean was Formula 2, me too. We were together. That year I finished second, he finished third.
Yeah.
And then Renault decided to pull off, to pull out of Formula 1 back then. And then in 2009 I had no drive, so I went back to Formula 2, finished third in the championship. Then I got my drive in Formula 1 the year after. And
that moment when you get the call, do you remember that? When how do you end up, getting confirmed, knowing next year I'm going to be a full-time F1 driver?
That was pretty special because it was my target when I was a kid. There was nothing else. My target was to drive in Formula 1, to race in Formula 1, and it was a process. So I went to talk to the team. I had good results. I had good tests. I have done good tests with Renault, so I had some experience. And then we signed the deal in London in October 2009. And I remember going from signing the contract to sitting with my father and stuff, and having a drink and saying, look,
what an achievement.
We made it to this moment. So now it starts the next level. So then I was in F1 for 1 year. It was a horrible year because the team was not performing well. Then I moved out of Formula 1. I went to endurance racing. I signed my deal with Audi.
Yeah.
Also by luck a little bit, because Dean Do Capello decided to retire in the middle of the year. They offered me to do one race with Audi only in Brazil. I end up out qualifying everybody and did the fastest lap of the race, and I did a mega race.
In your home race as well.
So it was a track I knew. So then I got a contract from Audi. Then I raced 4-time Le Mans with LMP1. Back then Audi was even better than some Formula 1 teams. It was amazing, the structure.
Yeah, being in LMP1 with Audi back then was...
Yeah, it was like a dream come true. So I raced 4 years with Audi. 3 years full-time in the WEC, and then in 1 year before the LMP1 project stopped, Formula E started. I started with Abt, which had a link with Audi back then. Then Audi decided to stop WEC and focus in Formula E. I continued with Audi, so I did almost like a decade racing for Audi. I won the first Formula E race ever in 2014. Then I won the title in 2017, and I've been racing Formula E since then. So.
I mean, it's really interesting hearing, every step of the way, the various steps you need to go through. And now being in FE, you are one of the very few who's done all of the...
Only 2 drivers
exactly,
have done,
2.
Me and Sam Bird.
Yes.
So we've done every single race so far.
That's pretty incredible.
I have the record in points. I think I have 900 and something points.
Okay.
36 podiums, which also is a record. I don't have the victories record. Buemi has 13. I have 12.
Oh, we'll fix that this weekend. Yes. No problem.
And Sam Bird has 11, and I think Jev has 10 or 9.
So I can tell there is this real of course, I mean, it's a championship, there's going to be the rivalry, but you've got all those stats ready on the go right there.
Yeah, I have it because I remember every single one of them is very special. So, and by the way, Buemi was my teammate in Formula 2 also. So
okay, so and does that make a big difference to you if you're racing, if you're on track, going for an overtake or something, and you've got, Buemi or let's say Sam Bird or someone that you've been racing with for a long time, compared to someone, who's maybe your first season racing with them? Does that affect, do you feel like you can take more chances if it's someone that well, how they'll react or
yeah, so people react differently, also according to their position in the championship or how much they have to lose or gain. So it's not that one driver always reacts the same, but there is some patterns. And by knowing your adversary really well, you can actually use that to navigate better. So you can take the right risks at the right time and understand which driver would just go for a crash, which other would think twice and do a smart move, which ones know how to race, because in Formula E, you can actually damage your own race and you damage somebody else's race and nobody does any points, and you just, it's just not efficient. So there is a lot of things you can actually learn with a guy that you know for a long time.
Yeah, and it's you know, Formula E, I've been lucky enough to go to a few of the races, and it's there's a lot of action going on, there's a lot of risk involved. So, you know, a lot of overtaking, very, you know, street circuit, so very tight. So going for those moves, I've seen a couple, you know, obviously now I see some that you're posting that you've done on Instagram, and there's a few where I'm like, whoa, I mean, to go for that gap, you need to be brave to go for some of that.
Yeah, Formula E is a very special type of racing. The circuits are the most difficult in the world by far. They are much more difficult than any other circuit or any other track that we ever raced, because street tracks are inherently difficult, because if you do a mistake, you touch the wall, there is no curbs or grass that you go outside and you come back. And the way the energy management, because of the battery, has to be done during the race, allow you to be slightly quicker at the beginning of the race or at the end. So depending how much energy you deploy, you can really attack somebody or defend. Or so it's not about pure performance every single lap. You know, you have to trace a long-term strategy, and that's very, very difficult, because also you don't want to lose track position, but you cannot waste energy. And that's how you have to be smart, to be in the right time, with the right energy to attack in the right moment. So it's given that you are constrained because of the walls and because of the tight tracks and bumps, and so it is very difficult.
Yeah, I know. It's Formula E I find really fascinating, just how different the racing is. I mean, at least from the outside, it looks like that. The strategy plays a huge role in it. The battery management sounds like, obviously it's very different, but kind of similar to how you'll have tire management in a lot of different racing series, right? Because you don't really have that much tire management. Or
we don't, but at the same time we do in a way. We only have one tire that we race in the dry and in the wet, and this tire it overheats when it's dry and sunny, because it's a tire made for all weather conditions. So when it's hot, the tire starts to melt in a way, so the car moves a lot. So the way you drive, how much energy you put into the tire by not sliding too much. Exactly when you burn rubber that you make smoke, you don't want to do that, even in a small level. You want to try to keep your tires as cool as possible. And the driving makes a big difference. So how you apply the throttle, the car has so much torque, so you need to be very, very gentle with the throttle. You have to manage the how much regeneration under braking, because that also creates a lot of friction on the rear tires. So there is some tire management. There is no tire strategy, because you don't change tires, but there is tire management on the driving and setup.
Yeah, it's fascinating to hear how much you've got going on. I remember one of the first times I drove a go-kart, and all I had to do was just look at my lap time, right? But I couldn't, I was like, how am I supposed to look at a little screen while I'm driving? But you're, adjusting all sorts of different things. And I've always found it so impressive. When you watch any race series on TV, it's one thing. When you actually are able to then get into a car, whether it's passenger or drive, you then realize the different level of physical and mental calibration you need to have. And that's something, for me, if we go back a little bit in your career, that really interests me in terms of how big is the jump between the various series that you're doing, right? First of all, karting to cars.
Big jump.
And yeah, because it's like completely different,
Yes.
wheelbase, everything, the way you drive is different, right?
Yeah, karting is really the base. Like when you're a kid, you're getting karting is extremely fast. So when you're saying that you don't have time to look, karting is actually the sensation of speed only compares to something like Formula 2 or Formula E or Formula One. Formula E because of the track layout, but something like this. Formula 3 is slow. Formula 4 and 3, they are slower than go-kart in terms of how much time you have between one corner and another. Go-kart, you go out of one corner, the other corner is already there. Formula 3, you go out of one corner, you have like a few seconds in the straight, so you have time to look. So from karting to cars is a big jump. It's a big jump because it's a big jump of costs. It's a big jump of technique. Sometimes people are very good in go-kart, they don't adapt themselves. If you don't really understand what you're doing in go-kart, you're just fast because of instinct. Sometimes this transition is not as smooth as it looks. So then Formula 4, then Formula 3 is a small jump, Formula 3 to 2 is a big jump. It goes from 350 horsepower to 600 horsepower.
So physically, everything, yeah.
Physically, neck and downforce levels, and it starts to become really fast, Formula 2. And then Formula 2 to Formula 1, it didn't used to be so much of a big jump, but with the new cars now, there is another big jump to F1. So I think since 2016, 17, the jump from Formula 2 to Formula 1 is again big. Back in my days when the cars were kind of they were trying to slow down the F1 with that weird noses that they remember.
Yeah, I remember those.
That was less of a jump.
Yeah, and then to endurance, because that's a whole different way of driving, a different way of adapting yourself. Physically, is endurance almost harder because
It's harder.
Yeah,
LMP1 is harder. It's a very fast car. We got at one point that we had more than 1,000 horsepower in the Audi car, 4x4. You had 400 electric, 500 horsepower electric front axle, and 600 horsepower turbo diesel, 7-speed rear axle. So you had a lot of horsepower. I remember like accelerating Le Mans out of the chicane when you get all the power from the front and the rear axle together, that the sweat is like the sweat is coming down, and then you accelerate and the sweat goes
and off it goes again.
Back to the back of the helmet, and then you brake and the sweat just jump to the visor like this. So and you drive for a long time. So you drive in Le Mans you drive up to 4 hours. The limit is 4. I drove already like 3.5, but it's not like you drive once. You drive 3 times 3 hours in Le Mans. So
with not much sleep.
I cannot sleep.
Okay.
With adrenaline and everything. So it's a different technique. You don't drive to the very limit. Like the limit between driving Formula E and the Le Mans car is completely different. You're like 10 times more relaxed driving the Le Mans car, even if it has much more horsepower, because you're not 2 millimeters from the wall. There is less walls, and you keep a margin because you know that, of course, you have to push to the limits, but you cannot do a mistake, and you have to save equipment for the 24-hour race. So, but the technique is different. So the technique also for endurance, you drive at night, you drive in rain, you drive when there's oil on the track, you drive sometimes with amateur drivers, drive in the GT category. So there is difference between the speed. In Le Mans, the LMP1 got to I got up to last year. The top speed record was mine at 356 kph, and the GTs they go at 280 by the time you reach your top speed. So the delta in speed is huge.
Flying by.
And you are at night. The GTs they cannot see with the lights how far the LMP1 cars are, because you don't know if it's 100 meters or 300 meters. So there is a different technique also how you overtake the guys without losing time, and so on.
Judging whether they're about to come out.
The point is that every category has their special skills that is required for you to perform at the top level. And
I mean, that's why it's so impressive in a race, in a driver's career, to have success in different categories.
I guess so. I would say a good driver would adapt everywhere, but it takes time and effort and skills to adapt to the different levels of racing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you say, a good driver can adapt everywhere. A good drive, again, maybe is really good at setting up a car, whatever car it may be, to their to their driving style. I know when so I went to Mexico to the Formula E race, and I was walking around the garage and speaking to some of the mechanics in your team. They were saying that it's incredible with the experience that you've now got in FE, being able to set the car up is they hadn't worked, I think, with anyone who had it quite to that level. And hearing how important that was to them was something that anyone who's not really into motorsport won't quite realize, that, there's your on track. You can be super fast over one lap, but if your car isn't set up for the race, your car isn't set up to your driving style, it's going to be really tricky to be successful over a championship. So that plays a big role.
Yeah, I always focus myself a lot on the technical side. It's very important. And for me, I know a lot of other drivers that has much more talent than I have in terms of natural speed, but I could compensate and sometimes even on average get better than them because I understood what the car needed and I was able to fix the car and to develop the car in a good way. So even if I got beaten 1 or 2 races, I knew that over a championship I would perform well.
Yeah, the hard work will pay off, once you...
Even if you, let's say you're a tenth slower than the other driver on ultimate lap time, if you manage to get a good car, when the other driver is lost, he's last.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to always perform in a good level.
Yeah, no, it's really cool to kind of hear all of these different things with having been able to see you at the races as well. As a racing driver also, what was it like going to the electric cars, going to FE? I know we'll get into sustainability and everything that you're doing for the electrification of cars as well. Ooh, got a little noise. But yeah, making that switch must have been really particular.
Yes. So it was quite clear that the tendency for electrification was coming along. When I was in F1, the cars started having CARES. It was the second year the cars, they had CARES. Then when I moved to Audi in endurance, I had a hybrid with the front axle electric and the rear axle with combustion. So it was getting more towards electrification. So when Formula E came along, I was like, yeah, this is the future. Understanding a little bit of the physics behind it, you understand that the emissions, the efficiency and everything makes a lot of sense in the short, medium, long term, depending how you look at it and what exactly we're discussing. But the electrification would come. And then when we jumped into Formula E for the first time, the cars were nothing compared to anything that anyone has ever driven. The cars were very heavy on the rear because the battery still weighs like 300 kilos. The motor is very small. The tires, like I said, they are for all weather conditions. So it was a mixture between a rally car, a Formula car, something very, very hard to drive, very inconsistent to drive.
Quite a lot of understeer, no?
We have everything.
Yeah.
So you have understeer when the tires are cold, massive oversteer when the tires are hot. It's a mess. But it makes it very difficult. So the series is extremely difficult. We had great talent. We had great drivers that arrived and drove in Formula E, but they didn't stay. Jacques Villeneuve, for example, Takuma Sato, Jarno Trulli, and so many others that arrived, they raced, Esteban Gutierrez, so many ex-Formula 1 drivers, I think at least 20 or 25 ex-Formula 1 drivers that they came to Formula E and they didn't adapt and they moved on because it's such, like we discussed, it's such particular expertise that you need to develop, that you need to put a lot of focus and effort to do so. And some of the drivers, they didn't understand and they didn't care, or they didn't understand and they couldn't understand. So it was
get frustrated and then it's a downward spiral.
And then you try to overdrive, you try to push, you're pushing too much, it doesn't work.
And now there's been the Gen 1, the Gen 2, the Gen 3 car now. What was the main focus in the development of?
So Gen 1 was like the first ever electric car racing electric car ever produced. And then Gen 2 was a big step forward. So Gen 1 was 150 kilowatts race mode, 200 kilowatts quali mode. We had 2 cars in the pit stop, had to jump from one car to another because the battery was not good enough to to get it for the whole race. And then Gen 2, we had only one car, so the battery is twice more powerful. The car has 250 kilowatts for race and quali mode, so another 50 kilowatts, another 25% more. And Gen 3 now is another huge step. So we go to four-wheel drive, so we have motors in the front and in the rear.
Okay, yeah.
The car is smaller, 80 kilos lighter. The battery can deliver twice as much power, so and can have four-wheel drive, accelerating and braking. The car has no brakes at the rear, no physical brakes. All the brakes are done by the electric motor, recuperating energy. So it's the most efficient car by one order of magnitude. The car is more than 10 times more efficient than a Formula 1 car in terms of energy usage.
Okay.
And it accelerates 0 to 200. If you deploy the full power, it will be able to accelerate 0 to 200 in the same time as F1. So the car goes from 450 horsepower to 800 horsepower. And one
massive step up.
Yeah, it's a massive step. The car looks very futuristic, looks nice. It again smaller because we race in such a city tracks, which are the car being smaller is actually better. F1 has gone much bigger. If you look at the car compared to the past, they look like monsters and getting heavier. Formula E is going to the other direction. So I think they will coexist, Formula 1 and Formula E, and the Gen 3 will be a car which can show that electric can accelerate as fast or faster than any other car on the planet.
Yeah, because you get all the power just bosh in one go.
That's another thing. When you talk about in your channel, that I see a lot, everybody's always talking about power, engine power. This car has 500 horsepower. But you're talking about peak power. But what accelerates the car is not the peak power. Because imagine that you had one gear and you had a peak power in 6,000 RPM. You don't accelerate the same when you are at 3,000 RPM. So when you talk about acceleration, you have to talk about average power over the operating window of the gearbox. So this is what makes you accelerate, or the car has the torque to move forward is the average on the RPM. And electric, when we talk about maximum power, is actually the average power. Because when you accelerate, you have so much torque that the engine is already delivering the maximum power from lower RPM. That's why you don't need a gearbox. So we have only one gear. Tesla has only one gear. Okay, the Taycan has two gears on the back, but one in the front. But still, it's very little gears because you have average power. So when you talk about 800 horsepower, 700 horsepower average, it's almost like talking about maybe 1,000 or 1,100 horsepower peak. So this is
that's how you get those videos of the people reacting to the acceleration.
It's instantaneous, and the reaction, people that drive turbo cars, they know that there is a turbo lag. Electric is exactly the opposite. There is no lag at all. Have all the torque deployment as soon as you press the pedal.
Well, look, we've got many other things that we'll talk about. Maybe we'll do another episode at some point. We'll sit down as well and chat about also. I'm super interested. This is what we chat about more now is the future, like the direction that you're heading in. Supporting sustainability with all sorts of projects, and I just find it interesting the career afterwards as well, and what will happen next. So we'll have another conversation about this, but the main things right now are you need to prepare for your team's home race. I need to prepare for a big tennis match coming out now because I'm taking this seriously. We're about to go play, but we're gonna have to end this now. Thank you.
Thank you, Seb. Thank you very much. A big pleasure to be on the podcast, and there will be a second round for the podcast for sure.
There will be. Cheers, guys. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.